What makes 22 most dangerous prisons make for Hell's Angels members more than just violent facilities? The danger is not simply brutality or overcrowding, it is structural design. These prisons isolate leaders, fragment communication, and disrupt hierarchy. For an organization built on visible loyalty and disciplined command, that design creates a unique vulnerability. This investigation examines how specific prison systems do more than confine Hell's Angels members. They systematically interfere with the network that sustains them. ADX Florence, structural isolation as organizational neutralization. At ADX Florence, danger is not measured by inmate violence or gang warfare. It is engineered through controlled silence. As the United States' most restrictive federal supermax facility, ADX was designed to contain individuals classified as the highest security risk, including organized crime leaders, domestic extremists, and cartel figures. The architecture itself is a containment strategy. Inmates spend approximately 23 hours a day inside reinforced concrete cells. Human contact is minimal. Recreation occurs alone inside enclosed spaces. Communication is delayed, screened, and heavily regulated. Movement is choreographed to prevent interaction. For Hell's Angels members, the threat at ADX is structural neutralization. The Hell's Angels' strength depends on visible hierarchy, coordinated communication, and reinforcement of rank. The club operates through disciplined signaling, patches, titles, and collective presence establish authority. ADX removes every mechanism that allows that authority to function. There is no yard consolidation, no housing unit congregation, no ability to reinforce rank through proximity. Even subtle signaling between affiliated inmates becomes nearly impossible under surveillance and physical separation. Federal intelligence systems at ADX are designed to prevent coordinated activity. Any communication suggesting an organized structure is flagged. Letters are screened, visits are monitored. Phone access is restricted. Attempts to transmit coded messaging can result in further limitations. Unlike general population prisons, where gangs negotiate territory, ADX eliminates the arena in which negotiation occurs. Hierarchy cannot expand when members cannot interact. Leadership cannot project authority when separated from subordinates. Over time, reinforcement cycles slow. External chapter communication becomes fragmented. Identity remains internal, but loses operational capacity. Influence becomes symbolic rather than strategic. ADX does not dismantle the Hell's Angels' identity through violence. It dismantles functionality through engineered isolation. In a system where collective visibility is structurally impossible, hierarchy cannot be performed. It must survive in memory rather than action. And when organized networks lose the ability to coordinate, even disciplined structures face erosion. Not through confrontation, but through silence. Pelican Bay State Prison, gang validation, and long-term SHU isolation. At Pelican Bay State Prison, danger historically operated through California's gang validation system and long-term placement in the security housing unit. Built in the late 1980s, Pelican Bay became known for isolating individuals identified as gang leaders or associates for extended periods, sometimes measured in years. The SHU model was designed specifically to disrupt organized prison networks by separating influential figures from their bases. For Hell's Angels members, this presents a direct structural threat. California's correctional policy historically classified gang affiliation as a management concern. When inmates were validated as affiliated with organized groups, housing decisions reflected that classification. Known associates could be separated deliberately. Communication between validated members was restricted. Congregation in the general population yards could be denied. The Hell's Angels structure depends on visible reinforcement of hierarchy, president, officers, rank order, and disciplined loyalty. In Pelican Bay's SHU environment, that structure loses its arena. Inmates housed in single cells experienced minimal interaction. Recreation occurred in isolated enclosures. Contact with other affiliates was limited to rare or tightly supervised moments. Unlike chaotic prisons, where gangs negotiate territory openly, Pelican Bay's system aimed to preempt consolidation. Intelligence units monitored correspondence and association patterns. Even symbolic signals of coordination could be interpreted as evidence of continued gang activity. External communication continued under screening and delay. Letters were reviewed, phone access was restricted, visits were monitored, reinforcement cycles slowed under procedural filtering. Leadership outside could not easily influence positioning inside when physical separation was enforced. For Hells Angels members, the SHU model does not test hierarchy against rival gangs alone. It tests whether hierarchy can survive without proximity. When influential figures are removed from the general population, their ability to project authority declines. Subordinates housed elsewhere must operate without direct reinforcement. Rank recognition becomes symbolic rather than operational. Pelican Bay illustrates a category of danger rooted in gang validation and long-term segregation. It does not rely on overt violence to destabilize organized identity. It relies on architectural and administrative isolation designed to fragment cohesive groups systematically. In such an environment, an organized structure faces attrition rather than confrontation. And when consolidation triggers segregation by policy, hierarchy must operate discreetly, aware that visible cohesion can lead directly to separation under validation protocols designed to prevent gang influence from stabilizing within the yard. San Quentin State Prison, entrenched yard politics and historical gang hierarchies. At San Quentin State Prison, danger is not engineered through isolation alone. It emerges from deeply entrenched yard politics shaped by decades of prison gang evolution. As California's oldest correctional institution, San Quentin houses long-term inmates within a general population system where internal alignments carry historical weight. Authority inside is layered, territorial, and influenced by long-standing alliances. For Hells Angels members, the structural risk lies in entering an ecosystem already defined by established prison hierarchies. California prisons have historically operated under racial and gang-based yard structures. Groups such as the Aryan Brotherhood and other organized inmate networks maintain influence over housing sectors and yard alignment. External biker affiliation does not automatically override those existing systems. Reputation must translate into compatibility with internal blocks. Unlike supermax facilities that suppress consolidation through isolation, San Quentin permits interaction, but within boundaries shaped by internal codes. Neutrality can be interpreted as instability. Alignment decisions carry consequences. Associating with one faction may create conflict with another. The Hells Angels structure depends on disciplined internal reinforcement and visible solidarity. In a prison where identity is filtered through established gang hierarchies, projecting independent authority becomes complicated. Rank recognition must operate within an environment where other groups already claim structured dominance. Intelligence units monitor organized activity closely. Coordinated behavior between affiliates may attract administrative review. Housing placement can shift if consolidation appears destabilizing. Influence cannot expand unchecked. Communication with outside chapters continues under supervision. Reinforcement cycles persist, but they are slowed and filtered. External leadership cannot easily control internal positioning once yard politics dictate alignment. San Quentin represents a distinct form of danger, historical gang saturation within a structured general population. For Hells Angels members, survival requires strategic navigation rather than automatic projection. Authority must coexist within established power blocks rather than attempt to override them. In such a setting, organized identity faces pressure from rival hierarchies that have matured inside the same walls for decades. And when entry occurs into an ecosystem governed by long-standing alliances, hierarchy must adapt carefully, aware that visibility invites scrutiny, and positioning must align with internal political realities rather than external reputation alone. La Sante Prison, urban density and multi-network convergence. At La Sante Prison, danger emerges from compressed space within a diverse inmate population shaped by multiple criminal ecosystems. Located in central Paris, La Sante operates as a high-security urban facility, housing both pre-trial detainees and sentenced offenders. Unlike remote supermax prisons, it allows interaction within densely populated housing wings, but under structured surveillance and administrative regulation. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in convergence under density. France's correctional system contains inmates affiliated with various organized crime groups, including regional gangs, transnational trafficking networks, and domestic criminal organizations. In such an environment, external biker identity does not automatically establish dominance. Influence must coexist within a layered ecosystem already structured by established blocks. Overcrowding amplifies tension. Limited space increases friction between inmate groups. Alliances often form along linguistic, regional, or prior criminal affiliations. Entering such a setting requires immediate positioning. Neutrality may limit protection. Alignment with one group may provoke tension with another. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on disciplined solidarity and visible reinforcement of rank. In La Sante, projecting that hierarchy must be balanced against scrutiny and internal competition. Consolidation between affiliates can attract administrative attention. Intelligence units monitor correspondence and association patterns. Communication with outside chapters continues under screening and supervision. Reinforcement cycles persist, but procedural filtering reduces immediacy. Leadership outside cannot easily dictate internal alignment decisions shaped by local inmate politics. Unlike supermax facilities that eliminate congregation, La Sante presents controlled exposure. Interaction is possible, but it unfolds within a compressed and competitive environment. For Hells Angels members, maintaining a structured identity requires strategic adaptation. Authority must integrate into a multi-network ecosystem rather than assume automatic precedence. La Sante represents a specific form of danger, urban density, combined with organized crime, convergence under surveillance. Hierarchy is neither fully suppressed nor unchallenged. It must navigate overlapping affiliations within a confined space, and when multiple criminal identities intersect inside a monitored urban prison, structured networks must balance visibility with discretion, ensuring cohesion survives while adapting to internal power realities shaped by density, diversity, and administrative oversight. USP Victorville, racial yard, politics, and federal gang alignment. At USP Victorville, danger is not rooted in isolation, it is rooted in alignment. This high-security federal penitentiary in California has developed a reputation for intense yard politics shaped by racial blocs and entrenched prison gangs. Violence here does not erupt randomly. It often follows established internal structures that define who stands with whom and who stands alone. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat at Victorville lies in forced positioning within an already defined ecosystem. Federal prisons frequently operate under racial alignment systems that influence housing, yard activity, and conflict boundaries. Groups such as the Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia affiliates, and various regional prison gangs maintain influence across high-security facilities. In such environments, affiliation is not optional, it is assessed immediately. The Hells Angels external hierarchy does not automatically override established federal prison alignments. A patched member entering Victorville may carry reputation from the outside, but inside, reputation must be translated into compatibility with dominant blocks. If alignment overlaps with an existing power structure, positioning may stabilize. If it conflicts, tension can escalate quickly. Victorville has experienced documented episodes of inmate violence involving organized groups. In a yard governed by entrenched racial politics, neutrality is rare. Refusal to align can result in isolation from protection networks. Alignment with one bloc can create hostility from others. For Hells Angels members, this environment tests structural flexibility. The club's hierarchy depends on disciplined internal reinforcement. But inside Victorville, rank cannot operate independently of racial and gang politics. Authority must be recalibrated to coexist within broader federal power structures. Unlike supermax facilities that neutralize through isolation, Victorville exposes members to layered competition. Intelligence units monitor gang affiliation closely. Any coordinated behavior between known associates may trigger housing reassignment or enhanced scrutiny. At the same time, failure to establish internal alignment can create vulnerability. Communication with outside chapters continues under federal monitoring. Reinforcement cycles slow but do not disappear. The challenge becomes maintaining club discipline while navigating yard politics that operate under separate rules. Victorville represents a distinct category of danger, structured competition within racially aligned federal ecosystems. In such an environment, organized identity cannot assume dominance. It must integrate or risk confrontation. And when positioning depends on compatibility with entrenched prison blocks, even disciplined external hierarchies must adapt to survive within the rigid alignment systems of a federal high-security yard. USP Lewisburg, Special Management Confinement and Gang Fragmentation. At USP Lewisburg, danger operates through controlled fragmentation. This high-security federal penitentiary has long housed inmates, classified as violent or disruptive within the Bureau of Prisons system. Lewisburg has functioned as a facility where perceived gang activity receives focused administrative attention. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in managed separation. The club's authority model depends on continuity, rank acknowledged, communication sustained, and discipline reinforced through presence. Lewisburg's housing strategies can disrupt that continuity. Inmates identified as affiliated with organized groups may be separated deliberately. Movement between units is monitored. Association patterns are reviewed. Unlike open general population yards where collective influence can stabilize over time, Lewisburg's management model allows administrators to intervene early when cohesion forms. Intelligence-driven housing adjustments prevent consolidation before it matures. Affiliates may find themselves housed apart, limiting reinforcement cycles. The special management environment emphasizes compliance and structured behavior under observation. Inmates experience frequent cell searches, monitored communication, and tightly regulated recreation schedules. Congregation opportunities are reduced compared to traditional yards. For Hells Angels members, this interrupts the visible reinforcement of hierarchy. Without consistent proximity to other affiliates, rank must function symbolically rather than operationally. Leadership cannot project authority effectively when coordination channels are narrowed. Communication with outside chapters continues under federal oversight. Correspondence is screened, phone calls are monitored, delays slow reinforcement, messages lose immediacy, reducing the effectiveness of external influence within the facility. Lewisburg does not eliminate organized identity through violence. It manages identity through administrative segmentation. In a prison where group affiliation can trigger classification decisions, overt consolidation becomes risky. Visibility invites review. Coordinated behavior may result in reassignment or intensified supervision. For Hells Angels members, maintaining structured cohesion requires discretion. Authority must operate within institutional boundaries that prioritize the prevention of gang consolidation. Lewisburg represents a category of danger rooted in fragmentation under surveillance. In such an environment, hierarchy cannot expand freely. It must operate carefully, aware that structural separation can occur at any point. And when continuity is repeatedly interrupted by administrative design, organized networks face pressure not from rival gangs alone, but from a system engineered to prevent cohesion before it stabilizes. USP Beaumont, Entrenched Gang Warfare Environment. At USP Beaumont, danger is tied to concentrated gang presence and a history of high-level inmate violence. This high-security federal penitentiary in Texas has housed members of major prison gangs, organized crime figures, and long-term offenders classified as requiring heightened supervision. Unlike facilities built around total isolation, Beaumont operates within a general population framework where entrenched inmate organizations actively influence internal order. For Hells Angels members, the threat here is direct exposure to rival criminal ecosystems. Federal prisons in Texas, authority cannot assume automatic respect. It must integrate into, or at least coexist with, entrenched prison alliances. Federal intelligence units monitor gang affiliation patterns closely. Communication between known associates is reviewed. Housing placements can be adjusted if coordination is perceived as destabilizing. While consolidation is possible, it is rarely unchecked. For a Hells Angels member, sustaining hierarchy requires strategic positioning. Rank must be balanced against internal politics shaped by racial alignment long-standing rivalries, and established prison leadership structures. Unlike supermax facilities that suppress identity through isolation, Beaumont presents competitive exposure. Influence can grow, but only if it survives confrontation within an already structured and sometimes volatile ecosystem. Communication with outside chapters continues under federal monitoring. Reinforcement cycles operate, but they are filtered. External leadership cannot easily control internal positioning once local prison politics take precedence. Beaumont illustrates a distinct form of danger, entrenched gang warfare within a high-security federal framework. In such an environment, organized identity must withstand pressure from rival networks that are equally disciplined and deeply rooted inside the system. And when hierarchy enters a yard already governed by established power blocks, survival depends not only on loyalty, but on careful navigation of an ecosystem where dominance is contested and violence remains a potential enforcement tool. USP Pollock, Intelligence Classification and Network Disruption. At USP Pollock, danger emerges through administrative scrutiny layered over a high-security population. This federal penitentiary houses inmates classified as serious offenders under a framework that emphasizes gang monitoring, communication control, and intelligence-driven housing decisions. Unlike facilities defined by extreme isolation or open gang warfare, Pollock operates in the middle ground. Interaction is permitted, but cohesion is evaluated continuously. For Hells Angels members, the structural risk lies in federal gang classification. The Bureau of Prisons maintains intelligence databases that track known or suspected gang affiliations. When an inmate is identified as belonging to an organized criminal network, that affiliation becomes part of housing and supervision decisions. Association with other validated members can trigger a review. Correspondence between affiliates is screened carefully. Patterns of coordination may result in separation. The Hells Angels operational model depends on structured communication and reinforcement of rank. Pollock's oversight framework complicates that process. Members may be housed apart deliberately to prevent consolidation. Even when placed in general population units, overt coordination can attract scrutiny. Unlike chaotic facilities where dominance is determined by immediate force, Pollock's system is bureaucratic. Influence is not suppressed by violence alone, but by paperwork, classification codes, and intelligence assessments. An affiliate's identity becomes a management variable. Communication with outside chapters continues under federal supervision. Letters are reviewed, phone calls are recorded, delays reduce immediacy, reinforcement cycles remain possible but slowed. External leadership cannot easily influence internal dynamics without crossing monitored channels. Inside the yard, positioning must consider both inmate politics and administrative response. Aligning visibly with other affiliates may strengthen internal cohesion but increase the likelihood of housing reassignment. Remaining discreet may reduce scrutiny but weaken symbolic reinforcement of rank. Pollock demonstrates a specific type of danger, containment through monitoring rather than confrontation. For Hells Angels members, hierarchy cannot operate freely when the association itself is tracked systematically. Authority must adapt to operate within boundaries that can shift based on intelligence interpretation. Unlike supermax facilities that eliminate congregation, Pollock allows limited interaction, but under observation. That observation changes behavior. Visibility becomes strategic rather than automatic. In such an environment, organized identity is not dismantled outright, it is pressured into discretion. And when classification systems are designed to identify and fragment cohesive groups, hierarchy must operate carefully, aware that consolidation may trigger administrative containment before influence fully stabilizes. Colorado State Penitentiary, administrative segregation as structural suppression. At Colorado State Penitentiary, the defining risk is prolonged administrative segregation within a highly controlled supermax framework. Built to house inmates classified as high risk or disruptive within the Colorado Department of Corrections, the facility emphasizes near-total isolation, restricted movement, and limited interpersonal interaction. Cells are reinforced. Recreation occurs alone. Contact with other inmates is minimal or non-existent. For Hells Angels members, this model presents a structural suppression of organized identity. The club's hierarchy depends on reinforcement through proximity, rank acknowledged visually, loyalty demonstrated collectively, discipline maintained through structured interaction. Administrative segregation eliminates the space required for those processes. Without shared yards or housing units, coordination becomes nearly impossible. Unlike high-security general population facilities, where influence must be negotiated among rival groups, Colorado State Penitentiary reduces competition by eliminating congregation. Inmates spend extended periods confined to individual cells. Interaction occurs primarily with staff under supervision. Communication with the outside world continues in restricted form. Correspondence is screened. Phone calls are limited. Visits, when permitted, are monitored. The reinforcement cycle that sustains collective identity slows dramatically under these constraints. For a Hells Angels member placed in long-term segregation, rank cannot be displayed openly. Leadership cannot project authority to subordinates housed elsewhere. Even subtle signaling between affiliates is obstructed by architectural and procedural design. Administrative classification determines housing placement. A known gang affiliation may increase the likelihood of segregation. Attempts to coordinate across units risk further restriction. Influence becomes internal rather than operational. It suppresses hierarchy by denying the infrastructure required for it to function. The psychological dimension is significant. Organized networks rely on visible affirmation of identity. Isolation weakens that affirmation over time. Without reinforcement through shared presence, loyalty must persist without feedback. For Hells Angels members, survival in such an environment requires endurance rather than dominance. Authority cannot expand. It can only endure within individual confinement. This facility represents a specific category of danger: administrative suppression through architectural design. In a prison engineered to prevent consolidation, organized identity cannot grow. It must survive quietly, disconnected from the mechanisms that typically sustain it. And when segregation replaces congregation, hierarchy loses its operational arena, reduced to memory and internal discipline under extended isolation. California State Prison, Corcoran, controlled yards, and strategic separation. At California State Prison Corcoran, danger is shaped by a combination of tightly managed housing units and a long history of gang presence within California's correctional system. Corcoran was designed as a high-security institution with structured yard access, administrative segregation units, and close monitoring of inmate movement. Unlike older prisons that evolved organically, Corcoran was built with a containment strategy embedded into its design. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in controlled exposure. California's prison system historically developed complex gang validation policies. Affiliates of organized criminal groups could be classified, monitored, and separated based on intelligence assessments. At Corcoran, housing decisions reflect both security classification and perceived gang affiliation. Association between validated members can trigger review or reassignment. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on proximity, visible rank acknowledgement, and consistent reinforcement. Corcoran's structure allows interaction, but that interaction is regulated. Yard time occurs in scheduled intervals. Congregation is observed. Any sign of coordinated consolidation may attract an administrative response. Unlike chaotic facilities where dominance is contested through open violence, Corcoran's environment blends inmate politics with institutional control. Rival prison gangs already operate within California's alignment systems. External biker affiliation must navigate those existing structures carefully. A Hells Angels member entering Corcoran does not encounter an empty field. He enters a landscape mapped by established inmate blocks with territorial awareness. Alignment choices affect safety. Neutral positioning may limit protection. Alignment with one faction may generate tension with another. Communication with outside chapters continues under monitored channels. Letters are screened, phone calls are recorded, reinforcement cycles operate, but within boundaries. Leadership outside cannot directly dictate yard dynamics shaped by internal alliances and administrative oversight. Corcoran does not eliminate hierarchy outright. It constrains it through strategic separation and observation. For Hells Angels members, maintaining disciplined cohesion requires discretion. Overt projection of rank may invite intelligence review. Coordinated activity must remain measured to avoid triggering classification. This facility represents a specific risk model, structured containment within a gang-aware correctional system. Hierarchy cannot expand freely, yet it is not erased. It must operate under watchful oversight and within a competitive yard ecosystem. And when consolidation can prompt, ensuring cohesion survives without provoking the separation mechanisms embedded into Corcoran's operational design. USP Terre Haute, high security containment under federal monitoring. At USP Terre Haute, danger is defined by concentrated federal oversight within a high security population. The facility houses inmates serving long sentences under structured housing policies, intelligence monitoring, and regulated movement protocols. Unlike supermax institutions that eliminate interaction, Terre Haute permits general population activity, but under continuous evaluation. For Hells Angels members, the structural risk lies in federal gang tracking systems layered over competitive inmate ecosystems. The Bureau of Prisons maintains intelligence records that document affiliation with organized groups. When an inmate is identified as a member of a criminal organization, maintains intelligence records that document affiliation with organized groups. When an inmate is identified as a member of a criminal organization, that classification influences housing, monitoring, and communication review. At Terre Haute, affiliation is not ignored. It becomes part of administrative decision-making. Inside the yard, established prison gangs and racially aligned blocks operate within informal hierarchies. External biker identity does not automatically override those structures. Influence must be negotiated within an environment already mapped by long-standing inmate networks. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on coordinated reinforcement. Rank is meaningful when acknowledged collectively. In Terre Haute, overt coordination between affiliates can trigger review. Housing placements may shift if consolidation is perceived as destabilizing. Visibility must therefore be strategic rather than automatic. Communication with outside chapters continues through screened correspondence and monitored calls. Reinforcement cycles persist, but slowly. External leadership cannot directly dictate positioning inside a yard shaped by internal alignment systems and federal oversight. Unlike chaotic prisons where dominance can expand rapidly through force, Terre Haute's environment blends competition with containment. Intelligence units monitor patterns of association. Organized activity may prompt intervention before it stabilizes. For a Hells Angels member, sustaining hierarchy requires careful calibration. Aligning with internal blocks may provide protection, but also limit autonomy. Remaining independent may reduce immediate conflict, but restrict access to established protection networks. Terre Haute represents a specific form of danger, high security exposure under federal monitoring. Hierarchy is not eliminated through isolation alone. It is pressured through intelligence, classification, and yard politics operating simultaneously. In such a setting, organized identity must operate within boundaries shaped by both inmate ecosystems and administrative scrutiny. And when affiliation becomes a monitored variable, consolidation cannot occur without awareness that oversight may intervene, requiring discipline, discretion, and adaptability to preserve structure inside a federal high-security environment. Milhaven Institution, organized crime concentration, under Canadian federal oversight. At Milhaven Institution, danger is defined by concentration. As one of Canada's maximum security federal facilities, Milhaven houses inmates convicted of serious, violent, and organized crime offenses. Over the decades, it has received individuals connected to major criminal networks, including outlaw motorcycle clubs, drug trafficking groups, and regional crime syndicates. The result is an environment where external affiliations do not disappear at the gate, they converge. For Hells Angels members, the structural risk lies in proximity to rival organized crime ecosystems within a tightly monitored federal framework. Canada's correctional system tracks gang and organized crime affiliation through intelligence units that evaluate risk, housing placement, and association patterns. Known members of outlaw motorcycle clubs are not treated as neutral inmates. Affiliation informs classification decisions. Association between known affiliates can prompt review or separation. Unlike supermax facilities that eliminate congregation, Milhaven permits general population interaction. However, that interaction occurs within an ecosystem already shaped by entrenched criminal blocs. Rival biker factions, independent crime groups, and regional alliances may be present simultaneously. Positioning becomes immediate. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on disciplined cohesion and visible reinforcement of rank. In Milhaven, that visibility operates under dual pressure. First, rival organized groups may challenge external authority. Second, administrative intelligence monitoring evaluates coordinated behavior for potential disruption. Overt consolidation between affiliates can attract scrutiny. Housing assignments may shift to prevent perceived organizational strengthening. Communication with outside chapters is supervised. Letters are screened. Phone calls are monitored. Reinforcement cycles persist, but slow under procedural filtering. For a Hells Angels member, maintaining hierarchy requires strategic integration within a competitive, organized crime landscape. Alignment decisions carry weight. Neutrality may limit protection. Association with other affiliates must be calibrated to avoid administrative response. Milhaven represents a specific category of danger: organized crime saturation under federal oversight. Hierarchy is not automatically dismantled, but it is neither unchallenged nor unchecked. Influence must coexist within a system where rival networks and institutional monitoring intersect. In such an environment, external reputation alone does not secure dominance. Authority must be negotiated within an ecosystem already structured by competing criminal identities. And when multiple organized networks occupy the same confined space under intelligent scrutiny, a structured hierarchy must operate carefully, balancing visibility, discipline, and discretion to avoid confrontation or administrative fragmentation. Archambault Institution, Quebec Biker War, Convergence. At Archambault Institution, danger is shaped by history. Located in Quebec, this maximum security federal facility has housed offenders connected to the province's long-running biker conflicts, including members and associates of outlaw motorcycle clubs involved in organized crime investigations. Unlike prisons, where affiliations fade into anonymity, Archambault has functioned as a convergence point for individuals tied to the same criminal ecosystem outside its walls. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in concentrated proximity to both allies and rivals under federal monitoring. Quebec's biker wars created deep divisions between motorcycle clubs and affiliated networks. When members from opposing factions enter the same maximum security environment, positioning becomes immediate. External rivalries do not disappear, they are compressed within confined housing units. Archambault operates under Canadian federal oversight, which includes intelligence monitoring of gang and organized crime affiliations. Known members of criminal organizations are classified accordingly. Association between affiliates can trigger an administrative review. Housing placements are influenced by risk assessment. Unlike decentralized prisons where inmate sovereignty dominates, Archambault balances internal gang awareness with state supervision. Interaction exists, but it is observed. Consolidation between known affiliates may invite separation. Visible solidarity may prompt an intelligence evaluation. The Hells Angels hierarchy relies on disciplined rank reinforcement and coordinated identity. In Archambault, that reinforcement must function within a setting shaped by historical rivalries and present-day oversight. If multiple affiliates are housed in proximity, cohesion can strengthen, but so can scrutiny. Aligning visibly with fellow members may solidify internal structure while simultaneously increasing administrative attention. Maintaining discretion reduces scrutiny, but weakens overt reinforcement of rank. Communication with outside chapters continues under screening. Visits are supervised, letters are monitored, reinforcement cycles operate, but within boundaries defined by federal policy. Archambault represents a specific type of danger, a concentrated biker ecosystem under controlled observation. It is not pure isolation, nor uncontrolled chaos. It is structured exposure, where rival networks coexist and administrative systems monitor consolidation. For Hells Angels members, survival depends on navigating both historic rivalries and contemporary oversight. Authority cannot assume automatic dominance. It must coexist with other organized identities that carry equal historical weight inside the same facility. And when long-standing biker conflicts compress within a single institution under federal intelligence review, hierarchy must balance visibility with caution, ensuring cohesion survives without provoking confrontation or administrative intervention. Port Cartier Institution: isolation within organized crime populations. At Port Cartier Institution, danger is defined by geographic and institutional isolation, combined with the presence of organized crime offenders. Located in a remote area of Quebec, this maximum security facility houses inmates serving long sentences under controlled movement protocols and monitored association procedures. Distance from major urban centers limits visitation frequency and slows communication with outside networks. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in separation layered over concentration. Port Cartier has historically received inmates connected to organized crime investigations, including individuals affiliated with outlaw motorcycle clubs. Canadian correctional policy tracks gang and organized crime affiliations as part of its intelligence framework. When known affiliates are housed within the same institution, administrative oversight increases to prevent consolidation. Unlike open general population environments, where hierarchy may expand through visible congregation, Port Cartier's structured housing model allows administrators to adjust placements strategically. Known associates can be separated to prevent reinforcement. Housing reassignments may occur if coordinated behavior appears destabilizing. The Hells Angels structure depends on consistent reinforcement of rank and loyalty. In a remote facility where interaction opportunities are limited and monitored, hierarchy must operate carefully. Proximity to fellow affiliates may strengthen cohesion, but it also attracts scrutiny. Communication with outside chapters is slowed by geographic distance and procedural review. Visits require travel to a remote region, reducing frequency. Correspondence is screened. Phone calls are monitored. Reinforcement cycles persist, but weaken under delay and filtering. The remote nature of the facility amplifies psychological pressure. Extended separation from support networks tests endurance. For a Hells Angels member, rank must persist without constant validation from broader chapter structures. Port Cartier does not eliminate organized identity outright. It constrains it through strategic isolation within a population already containing organized crime figures. This creates a specific form of danger, structured containment under remote conditions. Hierarchy cannot expand freely, yet it is not entirely erased. It must function discreetly within a monitored environment where consolidation may prompt administrative adjustment. For Hells Angels members, survival depends on balancing cohesion with caution. Visible solidarity strengthens internal discipline but risks separation. Discretion reduces scrutiny but limits reinforcement. In such a setting, organized structure faces pressure not through chaotic confrontation, but through calculated placement and remote containment. And when distance slows communication, while oversight limits association, hierarchy must endure quietly, sustained by discipline rather than proximity within an isolated maximum security environment. Dorchester Penitentiary, Atlantic Organized Crime Convergence. At Dorchester Penitentiary, danger emerges from convergence within a structured but competitive inmate population. As a multi-level federal institution in Atlantic Canada, Dorchester has housed offenders connected to regional organized crime networks, including individuals linked to outlaw motorcycle clubs operating in eastern provinces. Unlike remote supermax facilities, Dorchester combines interaction opportunities with intelligence monitoring under the Correctional Service of Canada. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in regional concentration intersecting with administrative oversight. Atlantic Canada has seen organized criminal activity tied to motorcycle clubs. Atlantic Canada has seen organized criminal activity tied to motorcycle clubs and associated networks. When individuals from overlapping ecosystems enter the same correctional environment, internal alignment becomes immediate. External affiliations do not vanish. They compress into housing units where prior rivalries or alliances may persist. Dorchester permits general population interaction, but association patterns are evaluated through institutional intelligence systems. Known gang or organized crime affiliation informs classification decisions. Housing placements reflect risk assessments. Coordinated behavior between validated affiliates can trigger review or separation. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on visible rank acknowledgement and disciplined reinforcement of loyalty. In Dorchester, that reinforcement must function within a competitive landscape where other regional criminal networks may hold influence. Authority cannot assume automatic precedence over established inmate blocks. Unlike facilities that isolate members entirely, Dorchester presents exposure under supervision. Influence can stabilize if affiliates are housed in proximity, but that proximity may increase administrative scrutiny. Intelligence units monitor correspondence and visitation. External communication continues, but is screened. Positioning within the inmate population requires negotiation. Aligning visibly with other affiliates strengthens internal cohesion, but may heighten oversight. Remaining discreet reduces administrative attention, but limits reinforcement of rank. Dorchester represents a specific form of danger, organized crime convergence within a monitored federal framework. Hierarchy is neither automatically suppressed nor entirely unchallenged. It must coexist with other structured identities shaped by regional loyalties and prior alliances. For Hells Angels members, survival depends on disciplined adaptation. External reputation may carry weight, but it does not override internal prison dynamics shaped by Atlantic criminal ecosystems. In such an environment, structured identity must balance projection with caution, ensuring cohesion survives while navigating both rival networks and institutional intelligence monitoring. And when regional organized crime networks intersect under federal supervision, hierarchy must operate strategically, preserving structure without provoking fragmentation through administrative intervention or internal confrontation. Edmonton Institution, Western Canada. Rival alignment pressure. At Edmonton Institution, danger is shaped by regional rivalry compressed within a federal maximum security environment. Located in Alberta, this institution has housed individuals connected to Western Canadian organized crime investigations, including outlaw motorcycle club affiliates and competing criminal networks. Interaction exists within a structured housing system, but affiliation does not go unnoticed. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in regional alignment pressure under administrative awareness. Western Canada has experienced periods of tension between outlaw motorcycle clubs and associated groups. When members from overlapping ecosystems enter the same institution, positioning becomes immediate. External alliances and rivalries carry weight inside, but they must operate within institutional boundaries shaped by federal oversight. The Correctional Service of Canada tracks organized crime affiliation through intelligence assessments. Known associates may be housed separately to prevent consolidation. Communication patterns are monitored. Coordinated behavior can trigger a review. Association is not ignored, it is evaluated. Unlike facilities built around prolonged isolation, Edmonton Institution allows general population interaction. That interaction creates an opportunity for cohesion, but also a risk of confrontation. Rival groups may already hold internal influence. External biker identity does not automatically displace established inmate hierarchies. The Hells Angels structure depends on disciplined reinforcement of rank and collective presence. In Edmonton, that reinforcement must navigate a competitive internal landscape. Visible solidarity may strengthen identity but increase scrutiny. Discretion reduces administrative attention but weakens overt hierarchy. Communication with outside chapters continues under screening. Visits are supervised, letters are monitored. Reinforcement cycles persist, but procedural filtering slows them. Leadership outside cannot fully control positioning within a yard shaped by Western Canadian rival dynamics. Edmonton Institution represents a specific category of danger, regional rivalry intersecting with structured oversight. Hierarchy must coexist with other organized identities that carry similar regional weight. Influence cannot assume automatic dominance. It must adapt to a landscape where alignment decisions carry consequences. For Hells Angels members, survival depends on balancing cohesion with strategic restraint. Authority must be preserved without triggering administrative separation or internal confrontation. In such a setting, Structured identity operates within a confined ecosystem shaped by Western Canadian criminal politics and federal monitoring, and when regional rivalries compress inside maximum security walls, hierarchy must function carefully, ensuring stability without escalating tension in an environment where both inmate networks and institutional intelligence shape daily life. Goulburn Correctional Centre. Supermax containment of outlaw motorcycle clubs. At Goulburn Correctional Centre, danger is defined by concentrated monitoring of high-risk offenders within Australia's most restrictive correctional environment. The facility includes a high-risk management correctional centre section designed to house inmates considered dangerous, disruptive, or linked to organised criminal enterprises. Movement is tightly regulated, association is controlled, surveillance is continuous. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in supermax containment, intersecting with Australia's crackdown on outlaw motorcycle clubs. Australian authorities have historically treated outlaw motorcycle gangs as organised crime entities. Legislative frameworks in several states have targeted motorcycle club networks directly. When members enter Goulburn, affiliation becomes a management variable. Intelligence units track association patterns. Known affiliates may be separated to prevent consolidation. Unlike general population facilities, where internal hierarchy can expand through visible congregation, Goulburn's supermax structure restricts interaction significantly. Housing assignments can isolate influential figures, recreation is limited and monitored. Communication between known associates is subject to review. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on disciplined reinforcement of rank and collective identity. In a supermax setting, those mechanisms are constrained. Leadership cannot project authority effectively when proximity is restricted. Subordinates housed elsewhere operate without direct reinforcement. Communication with outside chapters is monitored and filtered. Visits occur under supervision. Correspondence is reviewed. Reinforcement cycles slow under procedural barriers. Australia's enforcement environment further complicates positioning. Outlaw motorcycle club affiliation is not merely an internal yard matter. It intersects with broader law enforcement policy. Consolidation inside may be interpreted as a continuation of organised activity. Goulburn represents a specific form of danger, supermax containment applied within a jurisdiction that actively targets outlaw motorcycle networks. Hierarchy is not dismantled through chaotic confrontation. It is suppressed through structured isolation and intelligence oversight. For Hells Angels members, maintaining disciplined identity requires discretion and endurance. Visible consolidation risks administrative intervention. Isolation weakens reinforcement cycles over time. In such an environment, authority cannot expand freely. It must operate quietly within boundaries shaped by architectural design and policy-driven monitoring. And when a supermax facility functions within a legal system that prioritizes disruption of motorcycle club networks, structured identity faces containment not through rivalry alone, but through calculated separation designed to prevent cohesion from stabilizing inside the walls. Barwon Prison. Consolidation pressure. Within Australia's maximum security system, at Barwon Prison, danger is defined by concentrated maximum security housing within a jurisdiction that has aggressively legislated against outlaw motorcycle clubs. Located in Victoria, Barwon houses serious offenders, including individuals tied to organised criminal enterprises. Unlike supermax facilities built around total isolation, Barwon operates as a high-security institution that permits interaction, but under structured oversight and classification controls. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in consolidation pressure under a policy environment focused on disrupting motorcycle club networks. Australia's anti-association and organised crime legislation has treated outlaw motorcycle gangs as coordinated criminal entities. When members are incarcerated, affiliation does not become invisible. It informs risk assessments, housing decisions, and monitoring priorities. Known associates may be separated strategically to prevent consolidation. Barwon's general population structure allows congregation, but that congregation exists within a yard ecosystem that includes rival organised crime figures and other entrenched groups. External biker identity does not automatically displace established internal alignments. Influence must coexist with competing blocks shaped by regional criminal dynamics. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on visible reinforcement of rank. In Barwon, projecting authority must be balanced against administrative scrutiny. Coordinated positioning between affiliates may trigger a review. Intelligence units monitor communication channels and association patterns. Unlike chaotic facilities where dominance expands through force, Barwon blends inmate competition with institutional containment. Housing units may shift in response to perceived instability. Administrative segregation remains an available tool if consolidation is interpreted as destabilizing. Communication with outside chapters continues under supervision. Correspondence is screened, visits are monitored, reinforcement cycles persist but operate within boundaries shaped by policy and oversight. Barwon represents a distinct category of danger, high-security exposure within a jurisdiction actively targeting outlaw motorcycle networks. Hierarchy is not automatically dismantled. It is pressured by a combination of rival inmate presence and intelligence-driven containment. For Hells Angels members, maintaining a structured identity requires strategic restraint. Visible solidarity strengthens internal cohesion, but risks attracting administrative attention. Discretion reduces scrutiny, but weakens the overt projection of rank. In such an environment, an organized structure must navigate both inmate competition and policy-driven monitoring. And when maximum security confinement intersects with legislation designed to disrupt motorcycle club networks, hierarchy must operate cautiously, ensuring cohesion survives without triggering separation mechanisms embedded within the institution's oversight framework. Prison Belmarsh, intelligence containment in a high-security European framework. At Prison Belmarsh, danger is not shaped by visible chaos or uncontrolled inmate warfare. It is shaped by precision. Belmarsh operates as one of the United Kingdom's highest security facilities, housing individuals classified as serious offenders under a management model that integrates intelligence evaluation into daily prison operations. Surveillance is not an occasional measure, it is structural. Communication channels are screened, association patterns are logged. Housing placements reflect risk assessment profiles that evolve. The United Kingdom's correctional framework treats organized criminal affiliation as a management category. When an inmate is identified as associated with a structured criminal organization, that information informs classification decisions. Intelligence units monitor patterns of interaction between validated affiliates. Consolidation is not ignored until it becomes disruptive. It is evaluated as it forms. The Hells Angels operational model depends on visible reinforcement of hierarchy, rank acknowledgement, coordinated positioning, and disciplined solidarity function through presence. In Belmarsh, overt displays of collective identity carry administrative weight. Consolidation between affiliates may trigger a review. Housing assignments can shift if cohesion is interpreted as destabilizing. This does not mean hierarchy is eliminated outright. It means hierarchy becomes conditional. Visibility becomes strategic rather than automatic. A member must consider how alignment will be interpreted within an intelligence framework designed to identify organized patterns. Communication with outside chapters continues, but it is filtered. Letters are reviewed, phone calls are recorded, visits occur under supervision. Reinforcement cycles persist, yet procedural barriers slow immediacy. Leadership outside the institution cannot directly shape internal alignment when communication is mediated by oversight protocols. Fleury-Merogis Prison, scale, segmentation, and controlled interaction. At Fleury-Merogis Prison, danger is rooted in scale. As the largest prison complex in France, Fleury-Merogis houses thousands of inmates across multiple units, segmented by classification level, legal status, and behavioral assessment. Its size creates density. Its structure creates segmentation. Interaction is permitted, but it is organized within carefully defined housing blocks. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in navigating segmented ecosystems within a high-volume facility. Large prisons generate internal microenvironments. Each housing block can develop its own alignment patterns, influenced by nationality, language, prior criminal association, and internal inmate leadership. External biker identity does not automatically override these localized structures. Influence must adapt to the specific unit in which an inmate is placed. French correctional authorities monitor organized criminal affiliation as part of risk assessment procedures. Association between validated members can prompt review or housing adjustment. Consolidation is not ignored. It is evaluated within the broader context of maintaining institutional stability. Unlike supermax facilities that suppress congregation entirely, Fleury-Merogis allows structured interaction. However, that interaction is compartmentalized. Housing units operate semi-independently. Movement between sectors is regulated. This segmentation can fragment cohesion if affiliates are placed in separate blocks. The Hells Angels hierarchy depends on proximity and reinforcement of rank. In a facility where members may be dispersed across different units, visible consolidation becomes difficult. Communication is screened. Visits are supervised. Reinforcement cycles operate under procedural delay. For a Hells Angels member, sustaining a structured identity requires discretion. Aligning visibly with other affiliates may strengthen internal bonds but increase administrative scrutiny. Operating independently reduces attention but weakens overt reinforcement of rank. Fleury-Merogis represents a specific type of danger, segmentation within scale. Hierarchy is not dismantled through isolation or chaos. It is pressured by dispersion and oversight. Cohesion must survive across separated units under monitored communication. Pollsmoor Prison. Entrenched gang. Sovereignty. Under state strain. At Pollsmoor Prison, danger is shaped by the intersection of overcrowding and deeply entrenched prison gang structures. Located in South Africa's Western Cape, Pollsmoor has long been associated with internal gang dominance, particularly the influence of organized inmate groups that have historically shaped daily life within certain housing units. While the facility operates under formal state authority, internal sovereignty has at times functioned through powerful inmate blocks. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat lies in entering an ecosystem where prison gang hierarchies are already mature and territorially embedded. South African prison gang systems, particularly the numbers gangs, have historically exerted influence over inmate alignment, discipline, and protection networks. These structures operate through established codes and long-standing internal traditions. External criminal affiliation does not automatically override this embedded authority. Positioning must occur within a framework already governed by localized allegiance systems. Overcrowding intensifies pressure. Limited space amplifies competition. Resource access, sleeping arrangements, protection, movement privileges can be influenced by internal gang alignment. A newly incarcerated Hells Angels member would not enter a neutral field. He would enter a yard already structured by pre-existing loyalty systems that demand immediate alignment decisions. Unlike supermax facilities that suppress consolidation through isolation, Pollsmoor presents exposure under density. Interaction is permitted, but that interaction unfolds within a gang-dominant landscape. External biker identity may carry reputation, yet reputation must translate into compatibility within internal sovereignty structures. Carandiru Prison, historical mass violence, and gang institutionalization. At Carandiru Prison, danger historically emerged from saturation, institutional breakdown, and entrenched gang consolidation within one of Latin America's most infamous correctional complexes. Before its closure in 2002, Carandiru became synonymous with systemic overcrowding and the rise of organized inmate governance. The 1992 massacre, in which over 100 inmates were killed during a state intervention, exposed the volatility embedded within the facility's structure. For Hells Angels members, the structural threat in a prison such as Carandiru lies in concentrated gang institutionalization under unstable oversight. Carandiru's internal environment was shaped by the rise of powerful inmate groups, most notably the Primero Comando da Capital. Authority inside did not depend solely on state enforcement. It evolved through inmate networks capable of regulating discipline, controlling resources, and shaping internal order across housing units. In such an ecosystem, external biker affiliation would not automatically translate into authority. Influence inside depended on integration into established internal command structures. A member entering this environment would encounter a hierarchy already institutionalized within the prison population. The Hells Angels operational model depends on visible reinforcement of rank and disciplined solidarity. In a prison where another organized group already governs internal dynamics, projecting an independent hierarchy risks confrontation. Alignment decisions become immediate. Neutrality may limit protection. An open assertion of external identity may challenge existing inmate authority.